Hello, everybody. Welcome to Theonos. Thank you so much for being part of our channel. Today, we have a very interesting conversation, one that we have never had before in our entire lives. So we're going to speak about masculine and feminine energy. And today I have Neaves here with me. Nicholas, welcome. I would like you to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, so that the listeners can just have an idea who you are and what we're going to speak about today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity here. So I first started my practice way back in 2000, and I qualified in medicine as a doctor, and then I went into more the alternative sort of green pharmacy stuff, looking at more wellness approaches and how we can help people understand themselves, not just by prescribing medicine, but being able to help them really find the source of what their problems were. And a lot of that then involved coaching, understanding stress and how the body reacts to stress. And in that coaching dynamic, what I found was the opportunity to look through different lenses or metaphors that would help a person have a reference point, a new language, so to speak, to what they were experiencing. So, for example, if somebody was having a lot of work-related stress, and when you're in that stress, what we found is it was very difficult for that person to actually remove themselves and actually start a wellness program unless they learned a new language and they looked through different lenses, right? Which is helpful. And then we did the coaching, and through that we worked a lot on masculine and the feminine energies within a individual person. And it was a lovely reference tool and a language that people could take on board and actually use in real time, practical, hour to hour, every day, to help them navigate where they were specifically. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing the last 22 years in the practice. I'm a proud dad of my 3 beautiful daughters, so they bring in a lot of challenges and also a lot of beauty into my life for sure. I'm very blessed there. But no, I'm very grateful to be in the position to be able to help people and bring more of God's light into their worlds. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what you say about everything now, I do think it's some of the things that, brings the most challenges are also the things that brings the most joy. So, and I love the fact that you use the word light. Because, when you look at the beginning, the Bible says, and God said, let there be light. But you will see only 4 days later, you will see the sun and the moon and the stars being created. So there is a different energy to the aspect of light. I recently wrote a book called The Aura of Eden. And the word aura literally means, or just refers to atmosphere. And I'm speaking in a book, and I said, in Eden, before Adam and Eve sinned, there was a certain atmosphere, not just by speaking and doing, but just by being there. And I say, we as children of God, we should have a certain atmosphere around us without saying anything, without doing anything. Just our presence should do something. Now, today we're going to speak about that feminine atmosphere. We call it a feminine energy, and the masculine atmosphere or energy that we give out. If we see in the Bible does say God created them male and female. And we know that biologically he created them male and female, but it's more than that. It's more than just biology. There is a certain energy, type of energy that God has given to the masculine, God has given to the feminine. So what I want to hear by you today, to kick this off, what are the traits of a masculine energy? What are the traits of a feminine energy? And then I think this is now more 3 questions in one. Should one person have both? Like, I'm a male. Do I only have like a kind of like a masculine energy? Do I have female energy in me? And how do I manage it?
That's a great question. And again, when we're talking about energies, that aura you speak about, we're not talking actual gender, biological gender, right? So we're looking at a language that is there to describe certain states that a person can find themselves in, psychoneurobiologically. Okay, so psychology, neuro through your nervous system and into your body, you can actually experience different states. And using the word masculine and feminine energy starts to become a reference point again for people to understand where they are in their day, and will help them navigate themselves back to their natural essence. Stress is where you move away from your natural essence. Your essence is where you're most vital. It's where you're most comfortable. That sexual energy essence, and I say sexual because it's masculine or feminine, is what you are naturally gravitating towards. And I give a nice analogy when we're talking about this topic to answer your question there. Imagine the olden days, right, where we had a big barnyard and we had a dance and all the guys were sitting on one side and all the women were sitting on the other side, right? And the music starts playing. There's high anticipation and excitement. All the women are wanting, hopeful that a guy will get up and he will come and ask one of the ladies to dance, and he'll take her on the dance floor and he will hold the frame and do a beautiful dance with her. He'll lead her on the dance floor, right? That's a wonderful experience for her. And that's attractive, it's sexy, and it creates what we call a polarization of like, there's the man, there's the woman, and they come together and they have a wonderful dance. Okay. But now what's happening in society at the moment is a lot of the men are not getting up off the chair, so to speak, right? The music's playing, but the guys don't have the courage anymore, or they're just, they're lazy, whatever it may be. So they're not getting up and metaphorically going and asking a woman to dance. So the women are confused and they're having to do it all for themselves. And they get up then and go and ask the guy to dance because they're at the dance floor, the music's playing, and heck, I'm not going to waste my time here. So let me go and ask him. So she gets up and she goes and does all of that. She does all the asking. She takes him and she dances on the dance floor with him. And she has to lead him on the dance floor. And if you ask any woman, I had a women's empowerment talk this weekend on Saturday, and I did this analogy with them, and they all got it immediately, right? Because that's not attractive. I don't want to have to get up and go and do that, right? But so many women are metaphorically doing that day to day. They are getting up and doing things that are against that natural, energetic essence of being feminine in their essence. Okay, so if a woman or a man, because some men can be feminine in their essence, but I say in my practice the last 22 years, it's probably like 5% of men I've ever worked with would be more in their feminine essence. I have a very strong feminine leaning in towards that feminine energy because my work as a therapist is very nurturing, very nourishing, but it's not my natural feminine essence.
Very good.
But I can get caught up in that essence, do you understand, of that energy of being feminine because I give so much. And if I'm giving all day and I'm in my sessions and sometimes I run over time and I give and I give and I give, and then I've got my 3 girls and I have to nourish them, feed them, bath them, brush their hair. Okay, that can create a lot of stress in my body because my body actually is craving the natural masculine essence. So I have to balance that out now by going and doing some sit-ups, go and do some press-ups, maybe go for a walk, go and get into my music, right? That helps me go from the one extreme of being really on my feminine here and takes me back to being in my masculine essence where I'm Nicholas the man. I'm no longer the doctor, being the therapist in feminine energy, nourishing and nurturing. I know how to come back to being Nicholas the man, where I can give from my heart and be a man, particularly in a dating situation, right? Or a romantic situation. A woman doesn't want me to be their therapist or their dad on my feminine energy. When I was in my early 20s, I used to date women from that place, right? And I used to go and I sit at a coffee shop for 6 hours just listening to the woman, nurturing her, nourishing her, being in my feminine energy, thinking, man, I'm going to get lucky tonight. Because all the books said, just listen to her, nod your head, nod your head. I did this. And at the end of the evening, they'd give me a peck on the cheek and they'd say, Nick, such a great friend. Thank you so much, right? And I'm in the friend zone now because I was so far my feminine energy. And what did it bring out in them? It brought out in them that part that needed healing. Okay, that hardened part, that masculine part where they've got a masculine wound with maybe their father, right? And I helped them for 6 hours in a non-attractive way, in a non-polarizing way, in a therapeutic way. Okay, and then of course I was in the friend zone. So that's a roundabout way to answer your question there. But that dance floor analogy is a really good example of what I'm talking about when I mean masculine and feminine energies. If a woman comes to me and she's And I work a lot with them, the CEOs, their managers, they're in these high-powered career jobs, and they're not finding men. They're struggling to have relationships. And I say, well, because I wouldn't want to date you. Because you come here, you sit down, and you're all edgy, and you got the strong masculine energy. I would want you to take care of me because you're so strong. In your presence, I feel soft because you're so hard. I feel weak because you're so strong, right?
That's good.
I said, what about your natural feminine essence? Why don't you know how to get from being in your work mode? Go slay your dragons. And please, guys, I'm not sitting here saying as women you shouldn't be career driven and go out there and do what you got to do. You got to go out there and slay your dragons. The world needs more women leaders. But if your essence is feminine in nature, okay, you got to learn how to put the sword and the shield down and know how to get back into that feminine essence in romantic relationships. At work, in business, be as masculine as you want to be. But don't get stuck there. It's when women get stuck in that masculine energy that what happens is cortisol goes through the roof, the sugar goes through the roof, dopamine addiction happens, and they're caught in very negative, stressful hormonal cycles, very depleted of oxytocin, which is the connecting hormone, and very depleted in estrogen, which is the female hormone. So they're walking around really hard and very robotic and very inflexible, very rigid, very controlling. And men are terrified of that kind of energy, right? Because we want that more stereotypical. And if you ask any man, that woman who is softer, more flowing, who's open, she's playful, she's the cheerleader, she's happy to see and a smile. It's just, biologically, it works. It taps into our essence, and this is a little introduction perhaps here into some of these energies based on your question there.
I like that word cheerleader that you used. I think that's a very good word to
Or support, right? Yeah. Or support. Men want to be respected.
Yeah.
You see, and when a woman can put the sword and shield down and not compete with him.
That's good.
A lot of women are very competitive at the moment because they have to be. In the corporate world, they're trying to get to the top there. It's competitive. But in a romantic relationship, men don't want to be competed with. Men want to have that dance. They want to be able to lead you on the dance floor, right? So they want the support and the respect. If a woman woke up and she said, baby, go crush it out there today. I love you. Here's a lovely lunchbox. I'll message you a lovely picture of my beautiful new hair I've done at lunchtime. You my hero. Go make us tons of money. Can't wait to see you later. That man's going to walk out there feeling like a king, right? He's going to be like, wow, yes. But if he walks out the house and she's like, oh, don't forget to buy the milk. Oh, you shouldn't be wearing that. Or are you going to come home late again? All the complaints and criticisms. Now, obviously, that's taken out of context. And I mean, if she has a reason to complain and criticize, obviously. But a romantic relationship is about getting the balance right, the dance between that masculine and that feminine. And that's why I love that lens and that language of masculine and feminine, because people get it. And then the minute you say to a woman, for example, I worked with a lady in a corporate situation. Okay, she led a team of men, and what was happening was they were underperforming, they were not concentrating, and she did all the management techniques, but she wasn't successful. And I said to her, did you go to work dressed like this? And she said, yes, this is how I normally dress. I said, well, you look very attractive. You look very, very feminine. Okay, it's interesting, right? And she said, yeah, well, this is who I am. I'm not going to change for anybody. I said, but let's practice. Let's try something. Go to work with your hair up, get more of a suit, get more structured in get more masculine in what you're wearing. And you know what? She had better success with those men because she was no longer creating an attractive polarity between herself and the men, a sexual polarity. Okay. She was now seen as one of the men. And better performance. They could concentrate because that polarity, that arc wasn't created. In a meeting, she said to me the one time, she took a clip out of her hair because it was irritating her hair, and all her hair fell down on her shoulders. And she could see in that moment, she lost all the men in that meeting because she suddenly polarized them into their masculine and her into feminine energy because of her beautiful hair. Now they took note of her, not as a manager, but, oh, wow, she's actually quite attractive. And suddenly they shifted into that part of their thinking. and we've got to be honest and say we are sexual beings. At the end of the day, we are biological sexual beings, and God made a male and a female. He didn't make a third or a fourth entity.
Mm.
There's a woman, and we literally slot into each other, right? And we can make use of that beautiful design to really become one together in that energy, and ultimately, therefore, we're one with God through that union, right? That's the covenant. The way I see it is to be able to do something like that, where we are supportive, we are each other's cheerleaders. The way a man cheerleads for a woman and helps her get into a feminine energy is by holding a container, a space, like a beaker here, where she can express her emotions into this beaker, and he holds it. He doesn't break. If he breaks, she can't trust him. But if he can hold it like this, and she can express and share her love, her emotions and her love, then she feels safe. That's how he supports her. But that's a masculine structure. Masculine energy is a structure. The energy that comes in the water would be the feminine. So the feminine's like the ocean.
Wow.
It's always changing. The energy is always changing. It's changing color. There's creatures in there, man, that you've never seen before in your life, right? There's depth, there's layers, there's mystery. It's powerful. The feminine energy can literally kill you with a tsunami. It can be wild. It can be still. Feminine energy. Masculine energy is the bedrock on which that ocean lies.
Sure.
Okay.
It's very good.
But the minute that bedrock cracks, and a lot of men crack, the water seeps away.
I want to ask a question on that. I want to say one thing, and I want to ask a question on that when you say when men crack. Okay. I was having coffee with a friend of mine who's also in the ministry. He's an evangelist. His name is Israel. So I said to him the following, and this is going to sound very weird for some religious people, and I might get some attacks on this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I said to him, the second most important thing for me in a woman is that she's a Christian, or that she believes in Jesus. That's literally the second most important thing. And I cannot believe I say this publicly, but it's really like that. And he said, okay, so what's the first? I said, the first most important thing is when I get home, or when I get into a presence, I want to walk into a peaceful atmosphere. That's like, so I would rather marry. No, I will not marry a non-Christian girl. Like I want to state that, but I would rather marry a non-Christian girl that gives me a peaceful atmosphere than marry a Christian girl who gives me like this anxious atmosphere. And so that's why I wanted to ask, why do men crack?
I would say it's a lack of having healthy modeling with their own fathers and other men, perhaps. That's where we learn about masculine energy, right? Just through our fathers, our uncles, and the men in our families, right? So if a man hasn't had that, a lot of men end up swinging to the mother's side because the father isn't present. So they get used to the feminine energy, right? And they learn how to please mommy and how to make mommy happy. But what they don't learn is how to be a container in a healthy way, which is, love needs to be fierce. Love isn't just being a nice guy, right? Love is you need to put somebody in their place. Like this is the frame that I have on offer, and you need to enter that frame. Okay. In other words, you need to be that peaceful harmony that I see at the end of my day. You need to be the beauty on that canvas. I'll create the frame as the masculine, and then you shine for me. And that's what you just said it. Men crave that at a very deep core level. What makes that crack is a lack of knowing what this is in the first place from the father. What makes that crack is distraction nowadays, sexual distraction, pornography, and just social media in general, etc. Dopamine hits and getting your attention and taking you away from the partnership and the family, and getting your energy and attention outside of that dynamic is breaking down the masculine energy. It's going to make it crack. And also, men just in general don't have the skill on listening. They're not good active listeners, and we don't always know how to validate. And we often take things way too personally, and we take things to the point where we get very defensive, and we get very, we react. And this makes a woman feel unsafe in our presence. and that she can't be that full tidal wave. A woman wants to know that you can be the lighthouse on the rock, and she can crash down all her waves as much as she wants to, and you're going to still be standing. But if she comes at you and she says, oh, yeah, this, and then you crumble and you crack, she'll stop doing this. She'll stop bringing you that wild energy, and she'll settle, and she'll go quiet, and she'll become very still. And that's a problem, because guess why? You've got Chad at the gym, the personal trainer, who is being this every time she goes there. Guess what's going to happen with Chad at the gym? Chad's going to get all the passion, right? And then you're like, but hang on, you know, I'm buying you the cars and the houses and stuff like that. Why aren't you giving that to me? Because he's cracked. He's cracked because he hasn't got the emotional capacity to contain a woman's more wild, free-spirited, emotional nature. And it's often because daddy didn't do it with mommy, and I don't know how to do it.
So how does a person contain that? Can you maybe, because I also do weddings sometimes, and I sometimes speak to people in relationships and stuff. It's not my main thing, but I once said this at a wedding that I've done. I said, you are going to argue, but you can never argue in a way that one wins and one loses, because in a marriage, one cannot win and one lose. Either both win or both lose. So you have to argue in a way where both wins. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, you know, when people come to me and say, listen, but my husband doesn't want to open up emotionally, or my wife doesn't want to open up emotionally, I normally ask them, well, how did you respond the first time they did open up emotionally? Because the way you responded that time maybe gives an indication to why they are not. I'm not saying it's like that in all the cases, but my question is then, like, how should a person respond as that stable? Because I don't think you mean like don't show emotions. I just think you mean show emotions in a certain way. If you can just elaborate on that a bit.
Well, you know, you highlighted some really good points there. The first thing you mentioned there is, you know, don't fight to win, right? You know, it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's about finding peace, you know. So people who fight to be right means that they have quite a strong ego. And an ego just means that you haven't dealt with a lot of your emotional unrest or your emotional neglect, perhaps also as a child. So you developed an ego strength to have to dominate, control, and be right. Okay, because that gives you a sense of safety and control, right? That's a very quick summary of that. So the way you contain things is to do the work on your ego and to humble yourself again to something greater than yourself, right? That's also the beauty about the connection with God, is to, you know, be God-fearing. It's like, I'm not God running around here, almighty. No. So it's about being able to have the inner strength to be able to get in touch with your own mistakes. And that requires a lot of shadow work, meaning you have to go into the realms of your shadow. In other words, parts of yourself that you don't like. And that's often reflected in people in relationships. So when I point a finger and say, hey, I don't like that you think you're so clever, right? It's because growing up, somebody told me, don't be a clever little boy. Don't think you're so smart, Mr. Smarty Pants or whatever. So I suppress that part of myself that can be loud and express myself and just try and be smart, right? And now you come along and try and express yourself and share. I'm going to like try and keep you back and say, hey, Mr. Smarty Pants, you can't do that. But I've learned that behavior because I was hurt and I was wounded growing up. So relationships, unfortunately, are often us just reincarnating our childhoods with each other again. And we project so much nonsense onto each other, but it comes from that ego, from those wounds. So your healing is to become more secure within yourself, which is to get in touch with the parts of yourself that you're trying to disown and you're trying to run away from, to try and be this perfect, nice, kind, caring, loving, handsome person. Nonsense. I can be full of nonsense. I can be a pain in the ass. I can irritate somebody. I can be an ass, right? But can I love those parts of myself? So in other words, can I love me? Can I love Nicholas for both being good and bad?
Sure, that's good.
Because when I can bring the good and the bad together, that middle place is called love. unconditional love. The minute I focus on conditional love, I'm focusing more on the positive or more on the negative. Conditions. Be more positive. You got to be this. You got to be this. But what about that?
Very good.
We are both. Okay. That's wellness. That's health. That's healing, is where you can find that middle place. That's love. So if I love myself and am more okay with myself, I give you the space to be more who you are, and I'm not threatened by you.
Sure.
I don't perceive your actions and your voice as threat. Okay. I perceive it as acting in good faith for me. You have my well-being at heart. You're not trying to get something from me, or take something away from me. Okay. You're acting in good faith towards me because I'm more solid and I'm more secure. So that's how we become containers. So men have to learn how to do that more, because when a woman is coming with all her emotional stuff and her feelings and her thoughts and things like that, if you as a man are not comfortable with some of those things within inside of yourself, she's going to be triggering you left, right, and center. So of course you're going to get defensive.
It's very good.
Right. So say, for example, I do forget the bread and the milk, okay, and I come home as a stereotypical example, and she says, you know what, you're such a stupid ass for forgetting that. I always ask you and you forget. If I was 10 and someone called me a stupid ass on the soccer field and I had a punch up with that person, I'd be very sensitive to be called stupid ass again and to be seen as a failure for not getting the bread and the milk. Do you see? So I'm going to say, oh, stuff you. I had a busy day. You have no idea what kind of a day I've had. Why didn't you just get the bread and milk? You just sit around doing nothing all day.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Right? Who's right? Who's right? But if I'm a solid man, more secure, I can just take a nice deep breath and I can recognize I made a mistake. I forgot the bread and the milk. And I'm okay with that because I can make mistakes. I love myself. I'm not perfect.
Very good.
I can do these things. My hands up, babe. You got me. I made a mistake. I apologize. And I can see this has made you upset. Come and tell me why it's upset you. Have you had quite a crazy day? You seem quite edgy. You seem quite irritated. There seems to be a little bit more than just the bread and the milk. What's going on? Let's sit and talk. Oh, well, this and this and this and this, and you're such an idiot and this and this, and you got me, I am. I can do that. It sounds like you're really angry. It sounds like you're so frustrated. Talk to me. Containing her feelings. And then she'll talk and talk and talk and, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening. Yeah. Okay, baby. I'm gonna quickly go and get the bread and the milk. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm gonna quickly go to the engine and get that. I'm so sorry I forgot that. And then let's make supper together. Pour us a glass of wine. Let's enjoy the evening. And the man directs her, because masculine energy is about direction and leadership. It's about container. That's the essence of masculine energy, is leadership and direction. And a man's role in a romantic relationship is to lead and direct his woman's emotions, her ocean, into a safe container where he loves her.
Sure.
He's not reacting, not getting defensive and trying to control her, change her, manipulate her, get jealous with her, hurt her, abuse her. It's scary what guys do out there, man. But it's because they're very much more in their wounds and they haven't had good, strong fathers, and technology is distracting them and creating a whole new culture of how men should be. And it's terrible.
I want to ask this, and I didn't prepare you for this whatsoever. So if you have no clue what I'm talking about now, then we can just skip that. But I'll mention it. Have you ever heard of a practice called Ho'oponopono?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So just to give some background, and you can add to that, it's about this psychiatrist, I believe, that basically healed a whole mental hospital. And they said they were so bad to work in that mental hospital, a lot of the nurses and stuff quit. And this psychiatrist kind of like healed everybody. Like there was nobody left, but he didn't see the patients face to face. He didn't like counsel them or anything. He just he went through their files. He felt the feeling inside of him, or the trigger inside of him when he read the files, and he healed the trigger within himself by saying, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you." Does this connect to what you're saying here?
Yeah, so that trigger is so human consciousness in theory has about 3,000 negative traits. characteristics in humanity, okay?
Yeah.
There's an equal amount of about 3,000 good human traits, okay, that form part of our humanity, our characteristics of humanity, okay? We're all seeking love. At the end of the day, we're all seeking love, okay? We want to seek those primary healthy relationships. Hopefully they were healthy with our parents. We want to feel that love, okay? But what happens is, because our upbringing is often very conditional, we are taught to be good people, okay? Not many people allow us to be bad in a safe way and direct us back into that place of love, right? Okay. So if I'm behaving a certain way, you come across and you label me as bad, but my friend in the corner says that's good.
Sure.
It's different perceptions. It's the same behavior, but two people have different perceptions of what I'm doing. If both of them are an authority in my life, I'll be very confused and take on their opinions. I need to be my own authority and decide for myself whether my behavior was bad or good.
That's very good.
But what happens growing up is mommy and daddy are the authority, so we believe them. So when mommy says you're bad for being angry on the soccer field, oh, okay, mommy's upset, let me not be angry. Let me not be so passionate on the soccer field. So my whole life, I'm not as passionate as I know I can be because I'm wanting mommy to love me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Now someone comes along who's really angry and really passionate. Because I've suppressed that part of myself, it's now got energy. It's like keeping a ball underneath the surface of the pool. It wants to pop up. And the way it pops up is that's the trigger. So now someone outside me is being more passionate than me. I've got an issue with it because I don't know how to be passionate. But that's the trigger. So then I point a finger at him saying, you shouldn't be so passionate. And that's how we pass on that pain. So what that doctor's doing in that psychiatry ward is that he's recognizing that we're all a part of that as a collective, right? We all have these suppressions and we're all trying to express ourselves and ultimately come to a point of all being more fully loving and unconditional of each other.
Sure.
Okay. And the way we do that is by, yes, where are our triggers? So if he recognizes that, man, this person's maybe got this disease and maybe it's because there's pain there, maybe they were abused by their father. Let me go into that feeling of that pain and let me forgive the father. Let me say sorry to the father. Let me say thank you to the father. And then let me say, I love you, father. Right? And that is a mantra, right? Like a meditation that if you can forgive, if you can apologize for, if you can say thank you to, and if you can say, I love you, you've released the ball. That ball is now released. Now you're no longer trying to be good or bad. You're just being you. You can just be Albert. You can just be Nicholas. No more conditions.
Sure. I want to ask
no
this.
More triggers.
I want to ask this on what you just said. With the Ho'oponopono and with those 4 phrases, do you say that when the trigger comes up, do you say the 4 phrases towards the person? Do you say it towards yourself, or is it more a combination between the two?
So I'm no expert in this, man. I know about it, and I think what the guys do is they'll probably do it with both, right?
Okay.
I would imagine that, okay? And what it's just doing is it's giving you a reference, a navigation tool away from getting emotionally swept up in an incident. Let's say a taxi driver, this is the point. Let's say a taxi driver cuts in front of you, okay? And now you're all shook up and it's like, oh, screw taxi drivers. I hate them. The roads and potholes and South Africa. And for 2 hours, you're so caught up in this tense, anxious energy because now you're the victim of the villain, the taxi driver.
Sure.
Okay. And now you can't be that present with your next client or your next project because you're now in this villain victim dynamic. Your energy's been sapped here. But what that Hypnopo method is to say, okay, can I say thank you to the taxi driver? Can I forgive him? Can I say I love you? And can I say sorry? Right? Those are okay. It's like, what is that? All right. Like, how am I going to get to, screw him. He cut in front of me. I'm the victim here. Right? Okay, sure. It's an argument. But let's take a note of what actually happened. You were driving in your car and the taxi driver cuts in front of you. Did that taxi driver have an accident with you where you died? No, you're still alive. Okay, so let's rewind. If you're still alive, what actually happened after that event? Well, I became more alert on the road. What's great about that? What can you say thank you for there? What can you love about that? Well, being more alert means I'm probably going to be a better driver. If they break the law, I'm going to keep the law, because now when I see them coming, I'm going to be more focused and concentrated. Why is that good? I've got 3 kids in the back.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm a better driver because of taxi drivers? Yeah. Are taxi drivers therefore maybe the best traffic controllers on the road, better than the actual police maybe? Because when you see a taxi driver, it triggers you into being more focused and concentrated.
Sure.
Thank you, taxi driver. Thank you for teaching us how to be better drivers. That's the method. Now I can forgive him. Now I can say thank you. Now I can love him. And I can say, I'm so sorry to have made you out to be the villain. You're actually the hero here, because you make us all more alert, right? So that's balancing the positive with the negative, finding the middle place called love. And whatever you can love, Albert, and I think this is the key here with all of these things, is whatever you can love, you can let go of. Right? And that's what Jesus came to teach us. That's what turning the cheek is, right?
Sure.
Find both sides, because then you can love. If you get hit by one cheek and you're the villain, there's always the victim, there's always a villain, and you'll be haunted by that villain. But that's what the message is let go, right? And be free and love. Yeah. And you can only do that by using your mind to balance these things out. And that's masculine leadership, to go into the feeling realm, which is the feminine, to balance the masculine and feminine within you. That was one of your questions right in the beginning, is the goal is ultimately as humans is to be in touch with both our masculine and our feminine, and with choice, know when to turn on what energy. So when I'm in a session, I want to be very much in my intuitive, feminine, nurturing energy. So I switch it on. Okay. When I'm on a date with a lady, I want to switch on my masculine leadership, Nicholas man vibes, so that I don't spend 6 hours and just get a pick on the cheek. I get more lucky after maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it means to be a guy. Like, yes, let's go get the prize. Let's get the gold medal. Let's be directed and focused. But I can only do that if I'm really balanced.
Yeah.
That's
okay. So I want to, and thank you so much. This information is very, very, very I think it's going to help me. It's helping a lot of people already, I know.
Great.
Great. One last thing that I want to ask you, and you can elaborate on this a bit. There's a scripture, or there's a story in the Bible. And I remember you said earlier about, sometimes the girl goes to ask the guy to dance. And where Ruth, and it's the story of Ruth and Boaz. And Boaz obviously had to take on the man role in pursuing and leading Ruth. But there's a very interesting thing that happened as Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, said to her, go close to him, glean close to him, so that he can notice you, so that you can find favor with him. So although Boaz was supposed to, and he did pursue Ruth, Ruth had to do something to show that kind of like you have favor with me. And that's kind of like what I see, where the masculine type of person is the one that has to pursue, but the feminine is the one that says, listen, I'm going to create that atmosphere where you can have favor to do it. And I think the reason it doesn't happen a lot today is because this idea of toxic or wounded masculine energy, toxic and wounded feminine energy. Can you maybe elaborate on that, and then just maybe say how we can go back to a healthy masculine, healthy feminine?
So if I'm in my toxic feminine, it's where I would expect a woman to nourish, nurture, to create that frame for me, basically, as the man. If I'm masculine in essence and I expect her to create the frame, then I'm going to project all my needs and worries onto her, and want to share my emotions and just be supported and validated by her the whole time. Okay. If a woman's more in her toxic masculinity, she's overdoing it and she's overworking, she's burning out, she's developing IBS or other ovarian sort of endometrial issues, etc., because she's in too much of that masculine energy. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, I have a toxic masculine side now too, as a man, Okay. And that toxic masculinity would be for sex, money, and power. Okay. Those three things form a triad: sex, money, and power. Getting more sex, more power, and more money is very much the world of the masculine. But when we become gluttonous and we get into those more sinful sort of areas there, right, where we take more than what we actually are happy with, it's toxic. And that's where we'll start to use control and manipulation, and these different tactics to get more power, more sex, and more money. Right? That's toxic. When you're in your masculine energy and you love yourself, you'll have more than enough power, sex, and money. I can promise you, it will naturally come to you, and your quotient will be full. Your cup will be full. God will provide for you. But when you come from an empty place and you feel like you don't have that, because remember, mommy and dad didn't provide that, maybe you then feel that you have to resort to specific tactics. The toxic masculinity is a wounded man. So that man thinks that he has to perform in a specific way to get his needs met. Okay, he doesn't believe it's just his right to get those needs met as a man. Okay, so in performance, he has to compensate and he has to become clever. He has to survive, basically, and that's toxic masculinity. And in order to survive, he might steal, right? He might abuse, because at the end of the day, most villains, their deep desire, like any human, is to be loved.
Sure.
Right, but they weren't taught that I can give and receive love freely. It was very conditional. So they had to do certain things in order to earn love and to get love. Right, and that then becomes toxic.
I think I'm thinking about a story in the Bible, and I think when we speak about power, sex, and money, obviously there's kind of like the Bible does speak about God giving us power. The Bible does speak about us prospering financially, and the Bible does speak about a healthy sexual relationship between a husband and a wife. So all of those things are good. But and here's the thing that I see about performance. If you see in Matthew 4, the Bible says Jesus was in the wilderness and he was tempted by the devil. And the devil wanted him to perform the whole time. He said, do this and I will give you this. And it had a lot to do with power. But the thing about Jesus is he was cool. He was like, I don't have to perform to anybody. I don't need the power. I don't need the power you want to give me. Is that like a healthy masculine?
I've had an interesting journey with Jesus myself, and I mean, at the moment I'm wearing this because my personal journey is one of, looking for that king experience in my life too, that I can look up to find the king within myself. For me, it always comes back down to Jesus. That is the most, because remember, masculinity is sacrificial. People forget that, right? And Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice, right? And God made the ultimate sacrifice, which is the ultimate example of what a masculine energy is. Men go to war to die so that the families and the women can be okay, right? And it's that energy within us that can run into a house, a burning house, and go and rescue that child, even though we're burning and we've got wood falling on our heads. We will do that. There's a part of every, like if you were called now to go and do something, you would kick the adrenaline in and you'd go and do it. That's masculine energy. So Jesus is that example of that, absolutely. And remember, what I'm talking about, sex, money, and power, is they're wonderful qualities, but when they run you and they are your master, then it's toxic because you're coming from an empty place. But it's when you know that you're the master with God, Jesus, you have enough, and what you have, you're grateful for. You will naturally, as I say, gravitate towards those opportunities and have those experiences, I believe, rather than I have to have these things. Right? These are nice to haves. I'm provided for and I'm loved. And that comes from healthy attachment with your parent, and that can be another whole topic we can chat about one day. Maybe it's just, this thing about secure attachment versus insecure attachment. And people who have an insecure attachment don't have the faith or the trust that love is a reciprocal exchange. So that's why they get into those toxic realms and they have to do certain things to get the love that they're looking for, unfortunately.
One thing that I'm thinking about is we spoke about the ego earlier. And I think the whole idea of the ego is this cannot be satisfied. And a lot of successful people say this. I mean, like people who really have the power, money, and sex. A lot
Mm,
of those people say, listen, I thought that when I get this, I'm going to be more stable. But if I get that, if I get the power, if I get the sex, if I get the money from a place when I'm still insecure and in my toxic masculine or feminine on the inside, that actually destroys me more
mm,
than what it's going to heal me. Because a lot of people say, if I can just get here, if I can just get this, if I can just get this, then all of a sudden, then I'm going to be happy, then I'm going to be satisfied. Realizing
mm.
later, then now I'm more insecure than what I ever was. Now I'm more afraid than what I ever was. Now I'm more angry
Yeah,
and toxic than what I ever was. Is that correct?
yeah, absolutely. It's external, being validated through the external,
Mm.
right? Versus an internal validation, right? So absolutely, and those people are unfortunately very lonely, and it's really sad.
Wow.
But the point there is again, um, people have lost the ability. Not everybody, obviously, it's a generalization, but how to build healthy connections with people. That's been destroyed at the moment. There's so many distractions, and we're no longer building from the grassroots, healthy, faith-based,
Mm.
trusting connections with each other anymore. Back in the day, if you go back 100, 200, there were like two handfuls of people. There were more uncles and aunts and people who were there to back you up and to be there. And if dad wasn't there, then Uncle Joe was there. And then I've got your back. I'm there for you. You need a bit of a helping hand. I'm here. I'm there. There was a lot of that support network. Now we're also isolated and we're also on our own.
Mm.
And we don't have those connections like we've wanted before. So the connection therefore then becomes with my money, or the connection is with the power. And then people realize that it's not fulfilling, unfortunately, for them. But it's often because they don't know how
Mm.
to build those connections because they're wounded, and
Mm.
it's sad.
I had a friend recently told me that he told me that when you look at women, and I think it does happen. I don't say like it doesn't happen, but I'm saying also it's not 100% correct. But he spoke about this idea of, if you don't have the fancy house, if you don't have the fancy car, if you don't have the money and stuff like that, no woman will kind of go for you or date you or marry you. But
Mm,
that's also like a um, toxic femininity or masculinity or
mm. So status is men value status because we value resources and we value biologically being able to provide. So we want to help have the resources and materials for the woman to build the nest, right?
mm,
And a woman wants to have a nest because she wants to lay an egg and be safe in that nest. Okay,
no.
so she's wanting to nest biologically, right? Um, so men are very competitive by nature. So again, if I'm the king of the castle here and I, own the land, I have a better chance of finding that mate that would be of higher biological DNA value.
Mm,
So we are run by those hierarchies for the
mm,
biological reasons. Um, but correct, you will find that it's a woman who's insecure will often chase after a man with high status. But the more secure woman will look more for a man who can make her more emotionally safe. Okay, and has
interesting.
got that emotional status there. In other words, he has the emotional capacity to be with her and,
Mm.
actually keep that romance alive with her versus then all the material stuff that he has. Um, so we don't want to get lost in all of those
But also,
glamorous things.
but also,
Mm,
also the way I think if there's a healthy masculine and a healthy feminine getting together, the the
mm,
the the external things the prosperity necessary. That's also things that will come more naturally, rather than striving and struggling and fearing and being anxious about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the science points to that. All the studies on long-term relationships. The couple is wealthier, they have greater health, and they have better networks, connections. Right, so that's the way it's designed, right? For a man and a woman to find each other and to become one.
Wow.
Right, and that's where the strength is, and that's where the power is, and that's where the beginning of the family structure. I do believe that there's a very evil force in this world, and we can expand on that. That is ultimately it's trying to separate that union. So if I can distract a man in pornography and all these other things, then he's not going to come back here so much. If I can make the woman go and work and become hyper masculine over here, then he's not going to be as attracted to her, and she's not going to have the energy to want to do that. She's going to want to be on her own. Okay, so if you break that down, you break down the power there, because that is very powerful. That's the ultimate. I mean, all the science shows it, that it's the longevity, it's the wealth, it's all of those things that get created when two people are aligned and they have the orders of love correct. So it's God, then it's them, then it's the children, then it's the other family. Right? That's the healthy hierarchy order of love to help a couple go forward. Yeah, it's a good point there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for this, Nicholas. We definitely didn't run out of information. We only ran out of time. But I do hope we can do something like this again, because I do think this was brilliant. Thank you so much. Is there any last thing you want to say to the people? There doesn't have to be. Are there any last thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I always say that grace finds beauty in everything, right? So when you can help yourself balance out your positives and your negatives by maybe journaling and writing these things out.
Good.
And you forgive yourself, you're thankful for yourself, right? You're saying sorry to yourself and you love yourself. That aura you spoke about earlier isn't just masculine and feminine. For me, that's grace.
Wow. Right? Beautiful.
And we need more, and we need more grace on this planet, because grace is the atmosphere. Grace is the presence. Grace is, she walks with such grace, right? And that comes from balancing out these energies to find that middle place, which is love.
Wow. Beautiful. Nicholas, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you for your time. And thank you for everybody that was watching. I hope this helped you. I hope that the information you get with the help of the Holy Spirit will bring you to that place. And this is my desire for everybody watching, will bring you to that place where you go sit with yourself and say, okay, let's bring my good side, let's bring my shadow side, as Nicholas said, and let's get to that place where God created, let's get to the person who God created me to be. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon again. May God bless you. And thank you, Nicholas.
Take care. Bye-bye.